Do you think that playing truth and dare can be dangerous to you? A ghost can possess you just because you are playing this game. Today's story is from Nepal, revolving around truth and dare. My name is Roddy, and I hail from Nepal. Today, I want to share a chilling incident involving my close friend, Kara, that took place in our hometown, Biranagar. Kara and I have been inseparable since childhood. We attended school together and spent countless nights at each other's homes, as our mothers are also close friends and neighbors. The events I'm about to recount occurred when we were in 9th grade. One night, Kara came over for a sleepover. We were studying together, but as everyone else in the house drifted off to sleep, we decided to watch some movies. Kara, who was always terrified of horror films, agreed to watch them for my sake. Despite her fear, she had a collection of God sculptures in her room for protection. Little did we know, that night would lead to a harrowing experience. My birthday was approaching, and I had invited a few friends over to celebrate. After the party, we decided to play a game of truth and dare. Knowing Kara's fear of ghosts, she opted for truth every time. However, after much persuasion, she finally chose a dare. The dare was to venture into a nearby restaurant that my grandmother claimed had once been a cemetery. She had warned us about eerie sounds coming from that place at night. Although Kara was terrified, we taunted her until she resolved to go inside to prove her bravery. My parents were asleep, so we slipped out quietly. I tried to accompany her, reassuring her that I would be right by her side, but my friends held me back, insisting she had to complete the dare alone. As Kara walked away, I felt a strange sense of foreboding, but I couldn't intervene. We waited anxiously for her return. When Kara finally came back, I rushed to her, only to be met with silence. She stood there, tears streaming down her face. Confused, I apologized profusely, but she remained unresponsive, simply retreating to bed. The next morning, Kara was gone. My mother informed me she had left early and hadn't spoken much to her. I assumed she was upset and decided to give her space, planning to talk to her at school the next day. However, she didn't show up on Sunday either. Concerned, I visited her house that evening, only to find her unwell and weak. Her mother explained that Kara would be taking some time off from school. Whenever I visited, Kara was asleep, and I grew increasingly worried about her condition. One evening, I received a call from her mother, saying Kara wanted to see me. I rushed over, relieved at the thought of talking to her. However, when I arrived, I found her eating ladyfinger, a vegetable she had always despised. I was taken aback, but I brushed it off, trying to engage her in conversation. Instead, she wore a peculiar smile and cryptically replied, "I am changed too." This unnerved me, but I stayed with her, hoping my presence would help. Suddenly, she switched on the TV and began searching for horror movies. I felt a wave of confusion wash over me. When I attempted to apologize for the night of the dare, she seemed oblivious and continued to laugh maniacally at the films, sending chills down my spine. I pretended to feel sleepy and buried myself under a blanket, trying to block out her laughter. The next day at school, I noticed Kara staring at me blankly. During assembly, she fainted, and a teacher took her to the staff room. After a brief rest, she returned to class, but her demeanor had changed drastically. Her eyes were red and filled with rage. Before I could grasp what was happening, she slapped a classmate who had made a joke about her fainting. How could she have known about that? I was horrified to discover her voice had altered, sending shivers down the spines of our classmates. Kara fainted again and was rushed to the hospital, where doctors diagnosed her with low blood pressure. However, I felt deep down that something more sinister was at play. A few evenings later, I visited her home again. To my shock, I saw her removing all her God sculptures, replacing them with dark, unsettling posters. As I sat with her, I noticed the temperature in the room plummeting, despite the absence of any cooling devices. When I asked why it was so cold, she simply smiled eerily and remained silent. The next day, she fainted during assembly once more. When she regained consciousness, she demanded water, but her reaction to the water bottle was terrifying. She shouted for blood instead. I was paralyzed with fear. When Kara's parents summoned a religious scholar, she began to cry out for help, pleading, "I don't want to go." The scholar revealed that a ghost had possessed her, and it recognized me as her close friend. He instructed me to leave, saying my presence could be dangerous. After fainting again, Kara remained unresponsive for 4 days. When she finally regained consciousness, she had no memory of the entire ordeal. It took her a year to fully recover, but she eventually returned to her normal self. Now she is thriving in Australia, living her best life. Reflecting on that fateful night, I am reminded of the fragility of our experiences and the weight of our choices. Games meant for fun can sometimes unravel into the unimaginable,